Okay. When do you guys turn that on? Because I'm having a hard time finding
We got it.
it. Thank you.
Somebody turned it.
Okay, good. That's why we have this reminder here. Okay, so here we go. Let's get started. If the fact that we now have a CTE consultant in each state support region doesn't illustrate the importance that the Department of Education has put in to the work that we do as far as making sure that we are recruiting, deeming eligible, and serving students with disabilities. Nothing else will. This is really, really exciting for us. So what we'd like to do is to quickly introduce our team by region. So in Region 1, we have Lisa Height. Matt Marino is in Region 2. That good-looking guy in Region 3 is me, Bob Ross. Crystal Brisky is our CTE consultant in Region 4. Jody Glazer is Region 5. Ray Blevins is Region 6. Julie Frankel is your consultant in Region 7. Stacia Koshek is your consultant in Region 8. Terrell Swank is your consultant in Region 9. Carrie Hunter, Region 10. Radisha Young Willingham is your consultant in Region 11. Cindy Miller is your consultant in Region 12. Melissa Salazzo, Region 13. Forrest Kuhn does double duty, Region 14 and 15. And finally, last but not least, Beth Duffy is your SST CTE consultant serving Region 16. So again, we are very excited that we have this fantastic team together, and we're looking forward to our continued support of your work and working with you. We also have with us Amy Zamansky, who is the Secondary Transition and Workforce Development Consultant from the Office for Exceptional Children, as well as Chelsea Canterbury, who is the Educational Program Specialist for JTC programs, CBI programs, and middle school programs, and she's working out of the Office of Career and Technical Education. Carrie Calzo is our Ohio Transition Support Partnership Project Coordinator, and Brenna Bartlett, Assistant Director, Office of Career and Technical Education. So that is our state team as well as your state support team. So we are really excited to have our director from the Office of Career Technical Education with us today, Leah Amstead. Leah, we'll let you take it away.
Thank you, Bob. So I am super excited to be here this morning just to provide just a few comments. The first thing that I do want to share is that I hope that you realize the value that the Office of Career Technical Education, as well as the Office for Exceptional Children, put on the work that the Career Technical Planning District consultants do out in the SSTs by expanding the number that we have to ensure that the entire state is covered from that standpoint. As we continue to look at growing, workforce readiness is a huge buzzword right now. From an education standpoint as well as workforce standpoint, and that as we continue to look at the number of jobs that are coming to Ohio, how do we continue to support all students and ensure that our students with disabilities are being served, because they're going to play a key role in ensuring that we continue to have a strong pipeline of workforce for the companies that continue to come to Ohio. So it's really important, the work that they do in that, things that we're looking at in their work to help support districts. One of the key things is the self-review tool, especially as we go into the comprehensive local needs assessment and ensuring that, again, we are removing any type of barriers that could potentially not allow these students to have access to CTE programs. And then once they are provided the opportunity to engage in career technical education, ensuring that they're being served appropriately from that standpoint. Because again, it's going to take all Ohio citizens to fill the workforce needs from that standpoint. And then the last thing is that, and I know Chelsea and Amy are going to talk about this a little bit later, but you know, we have put a joint memo out with the Office for Exceptional Children around serving students with disabilities and collaborative FAPE and IDA, and again, ensuring that all educational partners are at the table in those discussions and that we are setting up the students for the greatest success. And so that's a really key communication piece that on the local level to really look at and think about how do we really get to collaborative FAPE and those type of things. So super excited to just, you know, share the excitement that we have in working with the CTPD consultants in growing the number of them with really equals growing our CTE delivery system from that standpoint. So it's an exciting time to be in Ohio and to be in career technical education in the state of Ohio. Thanks.
Leah, thank you so much.
No problem.
We are actually going to talk about the memo first thing. So we're going to echo all of the wonderful things that Leah just talked about. So again, good morning, everyone. I am Chelsea Canterbury from the Office of Career Technical Education. We are going to talk about the memo. There's 4 really big points that are answered in the memo in question answer format, at least the things that are most important takeaways for this particular population. So Bob, if you could go to the next slide for me. And Jody, if you would be kind enough to drop that link to the PDF, that would be awesome. So everybody can kind of read it as I go through. So first of all, as Leah said, to echo, students with disabilities should not have any barriers to entering the program of their choice. We have to make sure that all students are able to access career technical education equitably. Second, the memo talks about how our career centers and our partner schools, wherever our students are coming from, there's a collaborative responsibility to ensure that our students are receiving a free and appropriate public education. In every case, we have to look at our students as our students, that, you know, regardless of where they're being served and receiving their special education and related services, whether they're from a partner school or just open enrolling at a career center, that it's everyone's responsibility to work together to make sure that from day one, all of those components of the IEP and specially designed instruction accommodations are all met. It's also, as career centers, our responsibility, because we receive Perkins funds, to provide all of our students access to high quality, high wage, and in-demand careers, specifically to special populations, of which students with disabilities are a part. And then lastly, it's so important that we're able to offer programming to students in the least restrictive environment, that the traditional classroom should be the first choice for every student. And then, so our big 3 takeaways, like I said, first, our school partners have to work together to make sure that we are indeed meeting FAPE and all the requirements that comes with FAPE. To do that, we have to do number 2, that our special education and related services have to be provided everywhere in the public education, including in the career technical education classroom. And then lastly, our school partners have to create a continuum of services. We have to meet students where they are to still allow them to be introduced to and participate in career technical education in that least restrictive environment. Again, in that traditional classroom setting to the maximum extent possible. And that is the big pieces of the memo, but Jody kindly put the link in the chat for us, so you can all peruse that at your leisure and email us with any questions. So I think that really moving forward, it's a way to think about how are we currently working with our partner schools, or you as a partner school with your other partner schools if you're in a compact? How are we having meaningful discussions about collaborative FAPE? Do we have communication plans to make sure that we're not waiting until October to get IEP information over to the Career Center? I can assure you that our growing number of CTPD consultants that are running this meeting today are ecstatic about the opportunity to work with you to build consistent communication plans across your districts to make sure that we are providing the best possible outcomes and opportunities for our students with disabilities. So reach out to them too.
Okay, looks like we're Chelsea. Thank you. We've got some time here. We're actually doing well on time. Don't know if anyone has any questions or would like to unmute or put questions in the chat, but we do have some time. We're really lucky to have Chelsea's energy and leadership working with us. Okay.
Bob, since everybody's crickets there today, I even thought when Chelsea was talking is, do we call them partner schools or would we call them home schools or, associate schools? Is the terminology even user friendly? So those are just some little things I think that we all need to be mindful of.
Absolutely.
Well, if
Okay.
nobody has questions, let's get to the good stuff.
Yes, good point. Let's get to our promising practice share section. So we do have three programs that are going to share with us some promising practices. Chelsea, do you want to go ahead and introduce?
I do. I want to so much thank Ashley Miller from Fairfield Career Center of the Eastland Fairfield Career Centers. She's the coordinator of student support systems. I had the pleasure of hearing Ashley present at this summer's Ohio ACTE conference about the fantastic work that they're doing to support their students with disabilities across their curriculum, both in labs and in academics. So Ashley, if you're willing just to share with us a couple key highlights about the awesome work you guys are doing at Eastland Fairfield, we are excited to hear about it. And Ashley may be having some technical difficulties, so why don't we circle back in a little bit and hit up North Ridgeville first.
I don't know if Caitlin, I don't know if our staff are on yet. I'm happy to present the information, but can I reach out to them and get them to join quickly?
Yes, of course.
Okay.
Yeah. We'll do our first share out, and then we'll come back to Eastland if that's okay. While you're rounding the troops. Thank you.
So I'm not sure if everyone from the North Ridgeville team is here yet. I know that Chris Pelfrey, who is the curriculum director, is joined. Chris, do we have the team assembled and ready for the share or no?
This is Jackie Vance. I'm the Director of Student Services. So I don't think they're on yet. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. I just sent a quick text to them because they were anticipated to join at 9:45.
No worries. No worries.
So if the next district is available, if not, I will present their presentation. I know they'll be disappointed, but I will do that for them.
No problem. I do know that Shelby's here, right?
Wonderful.
Shelby, are you out there?
I am.
Hi, Shelby.
Hi.
I would like to introduce Shelby Kamenisky, who is the Vocational Special Ed Coordinator at the Auburn Career Center. And Shelby, I believe that Auburn was probably one of the first CTPDs in the state to actually use the CTE self-review tool and put together a communication plan. I think this is your, third year, fourth year of implementing the communication plan that you've developed. And I had the privilege of working with Shelby and her team prior to additional CTE consultants being hired. And I had asked Shelby if she would be willing to come and share her story as far as Auburn Career Center and the good, the bad, and the ugly of the work in developing the communication plan. So Shelby, if you don't mind, we'll move you up on the agenda here.
That's fine. Do you have a copy of our plan that you could put up, Bob? Or I can screen share perhaps.
Yeah, let me give you screen share. Give me 1 second, Shelby.
While you're doing that, I'll just talk about the history of our plan. So Bob had said that we use the self-review tool to create our plan, which is true. I do believe had the first one that was approved by the OEC in the state, but it wasn't because we wanted to. So what happened is I started at Auburn Career Center, I think in 2018. And I got a call from our superintendent, and he said, or assistant superintendent, and he said, hey, we just got pulled for OEC review. Congratulations. And I said, oh, great. So we went through that process, and one of our findings was that we did not have a communication plan. And so in our CAP, our corrective action plan, that was one of the things that we had to create. So Bob, Linda Thayer, Crystal Brisky, the team at Auburn all kind of got together and worked on creating a communication plan based on that self-review tool that Bob and Linda had shared with us. And so what we did is we met together as a pretty large team of Auburn staff members. We pulled people from the classroom, our administrative team, enrollment, that was a big part, and our counselors, and went through and answered all the questions in the self-review tool. And then from there, we kind of whittled things down and made a rough draft of our communication plan. Once that was written, we then shared the communication plan with all of the special ed directors, and you have screen share. All of the special ed directors from our associate districts. Try to share my screen here. And then, sorry, can anybody see? Bob, do you still see me or our plan?
No, we see like the table of contents of the plan.
Okay.
There you go. Okay, you're good.
Okay, so we shared out the rough draft of our communication plan with our special ed directors at our 11 associate school districts and got feedback from them. We used their feedback to then just basically make a final draft of the plan that was shared with superintendents and everybody in our district. And so we kind of rode on that for a little bit to get our bearings, shared it out a few times for other career centers to kind of model a plan off of. And then this year we updated it again using Google. I don't know about you, but our career center tends to be very Microsoft Word heavy. And we found that our associate school districts are not. And so we switched over to a Google format, which is this plan that we have right here. And we've put in live links and tabs so that it's more user-friendly. So, you know, if a district is looking at our plan, a counselor, a parent, whomever, and it's on our website, and they want to know about career development, they can just click the tab and it takes them there. We also have the return to the table of contents, which maybe isn't working. Oh, there we go. And so we made it hopefully more user-friendly for people instead of navigating through, you know, a bunch of different pieces of paper. We have our special education section, which this has been revised quite a bit. We found, you know, just some pitfalls for those of you that are maybe working on your plans. We tried to put dates in it, and that didn't work or make any sense. So one of the things that I had done on the first plan is to request all IEPs from our, we call them associate school districts, but partner districts, home districts, by May 15th. And that I found out was kind of silly. And so we've changed that to say, you know, in the time frame that Auburn, you know, request, and it's typically within 10 days of the students starting in the Career Center or over the summer if we know that they're coming. So that was one of the things we found. We've also tried to include our registration documents, which I'll show in a second. That is a big thing that changed. So 2 school years ago now, we changed our whole entire enrollment process to no longer include interviews, scoring rubrics, or anything like that. Our new enrollment process involves 2 things. 1, applying, and 2, being on track for graduation. Because we do not offer full academics here at Auburn, where we have our students still go to their associate school districts for their core classes. And so being on track to graduation is one of the things that's usually required. There's always some workarounds in order for students to get into a program, but that's about it. So we put our registration as at a glance document up. That way, sorry, I'm not gonna mess around with moving it too much, but so that families and our counselors and everybody that maybe was looking at the plan knows when our registration timelines are. We have priority registration. And then another thing that we put in here is our IEP compliance checklist. So when our intervention specialist, I don't know how to move that over, oops. When our intervention specialists review IEPs, they use our internal monitoring form to go through, check them. So that's in here so that anybody that wanted to see it could. And that's kind of really it. We talked about plan revisions and continuous improvement in our plan. So we do update this plan annually, basically because things change so much. Like I said, we had dates in there before. We found out that didn't work. We thought, what's the point of putting in dates if nobody can actually follow them? And when our enrollment plan changed, we changed that. And then, like I said, this year, we adjusted everything to be a Google format so that it's more user-friendly for our associate school districts. But we have basically everything that we could think of in there. We talk about our school counselors. We have discussion of career advising, and that's really heavy in our Career Center at the moment for 8th graders. And then we talk about just our special education supports. We do have a section in there about certification exams, and this is really helpful to use when talking with parents. We actually just pulled the document up yesterday when talking with a parent about our dispatch telecommunicator certification, that certification, not at any fault of Auburn Career Center or the associate school district, but it does not allow for reading accommodations. And the parent didn't understand why. And we kind of used our plan to say, like, hey, you know, one of the things that we talked about in this communication plan is that sometimes certification exams do not allow for accommodations of one sort or the other. And we were able to use this document to help get through that. Parent, for the most part, understands, but that is one thing we found it to be helpful for. And then career assessment, we do use this when we're trying to encourage students from our associate school districts that are unsure of maybe what program they want to be in to come and participate in a career assessment for the day. And so that's basically what we've done. It has, like I said, changed and morphed a little bit over time. We list our schools, our some of the staff members that are involved. We go through basically the enrollment and recruitment process. And this is listed, like I said, on our website, and it is shared with our guidance counselors and our special education directors from our associate school districts. And I keep these docs of registration updated so that everybody has the information needed on priority deadline, because we do a priority registration deadline and a general registration deadline. And we like to make sure everybody is aware of it. We have our whole application process and who is eligible. And that's basically it. We do talk about what it means to be placed in a program, waitlisted. What if you're ineligible? Students sign a commitment agreement, that's linked in there. So it's basically it. It took a long time to get it all together in a format that, you know, we liked. We've changed it several times. Every change ends up getting board approved, which is kind of cumbersome. But I mean, we've had pretty much some good success with it.
Toby, how many of your associate schools actually have like transition specialists, people serving those roles?
Well, that's a good question. I don't know the answer. I primarily, in my role, work with the transition coordinator that was working with our local educational service center.
Okay. And I'm just curious because I know probably a lot of students are maybe making some decisions based on their age appropriate transition assessments, and with the intervention specialist, what kinds of things do you do or opportunities for intervention specialists from associate schools to learn more about the programs that are offered at Auburn?
So one of the things that we do here is twice a year, I hold special education coordinators meetings with our associate school district staff. And we do invite our intervention specialists from associate school districts to come into the building. And every district is different. We've found that some districts keep the intervention specialist at grade level and just change the students. And that's actually very helpful for us because then the intervention specialists get familiar with the programs here at Auburn, the instructors, our intervention specialists. Some districts do it differently and the intervention specialists change every year. That's a little bit more tricky on our end because they don't know the programs. And so that's a cycle that never stops for sure. Bob is trying to acclimate new staff to our programs and our staff.
Thank you.
I have a question. I'm from the Southwestern Career Academy. I'm trying to get our intervention specialists from our home schools to come and see our programs. Do you think it's more beneficial to see it when the students are here or just like behind the scenes?
So we've done both. I guess it kind of depends on the time frame. It is nice to do it when there's students in the building working. But we've also just had staff come in early in the morning, you know, before school actually gets going so that we have a chance to sit down and really talk about the programs, show them some of the buildings and what the students are doing here. And that allowed for more questions being answered, but showing them the programs was also nice too, because they got to see the students up and engaged and working. And in some of the classrooms, it did give an idea of the rigor of the programs when they got to see, you know, the tools or the environment. I think sometimes there's a misconception with some of our healthcare programs over how difficult they are, and getting intervention specialists into the building to be able to see that students are working with like actual medical equipment is important.
Thank you. That was helpful.
And then, like I said, we do try to do a special education directors meeting 2 times a year where I make sure I reshare out information, because just like the intervention specialists, those staff members change. I found since I've started here at Auburn, you know, you get a really good process going with one director that seems to really get career tech and understands, you know, some of the complexities of having students with significant disabilities in the program, and then they change. We've kind of found a way to work through most of that with our new enrollment process. And I don't know how many people have, how many career centers have transition to just, you know, apply and accepted type of system that we have. We do use a lottery for enrollment. We call it a randomized process, but it's essentially a lottery. And so our communication plan reflects that, and some of the need for additional communications when students that may in the past not have been placed into a seat get accepted into our program. And we try to have a little bit more meetings just to make sure that staff and family are aware of the expectations and rigor of the program. I'll go back up here to the table of contents that anybody is interested about.
Toby, you said that the communication plan is on Auburn's website?
It should be.
Okay.
They did just recently make some changes, so perhaps it got buried, but yeah, it should be there by searching communication plan.
Okay. Can you talk a little bit just quickly about how you progress monitoring works and maybe the process if the student is in need of some extra support? Or
so that's a little tricky because we have intervention specialists at the associate schools that are the case managers. What we do is share as much information with those staff members as possible, because we're not typically the ones writing the IEP progress reports. And so if we're not sharing progress, then that intervention specialist might not have any data from Auburn at all. And so on a regular basis, we share gradebook updates, and our staff at our associate schools can get linked to our Infinite Campus if they so choose. We share teacher observations. We do oftentimes use Google Docs to record certain data on specific goals. If a student maybe has a behavior goal or something like that, we use a Google Doc to share that data back and forth. And then we just monitor things like attendance, work completion, anything basically that might be a barrier to a student being successful. We make sure that we're letting the case managers at our associate district know about that, so that it doesn't come time for the end of the quarter and all of a sudden, you know, a student maybe has a D or an F at Auburn Career Center and the case manager at our associate district never knew anything about it. And we have roughly 150 some students on IEPs here. So the number's kind of high. So it does involve a lot of communication. But like I said, for the most part, things like that work out well. I do, like I said, when the intervention specialists remain the same year after year, it's very helpful because they kind of know the process and how how things go here. But it doesn't take, new intervention specialists long to understand their programs. And typically the students that are here want to be here. So we're very fortunate in that.
Probably one of my colleagues had asked me to ask you, how long did it take you to get to this point? I know you at the beginning you were talking about sort of the chronology, but how many years has it been that?
So I think we completed this first draft, I guess, the final draft in 2019. So we've been doing it since then. And like I said, every year it's changed a little bit. We used to have at the beginning of our enrollment process, all of the information on our rubric, our scoring rubric, and our enrollment flow chart and our interview night and things like that. So all of that had to be taken out and changed. And then, like I said, this last school year, we adjusted it to be on a Google Doc with live links. So it was more user-friendly for our associate districts. So every year we've made a little tweak here and there. We have our internal monitoring process, which is kind of weird for the Career Center, honestly, because I don't own any of those IEPs. I'm not the case manager. Our intervention specialists aren't the case manager. So when we do come across something that's kind of glaringly obvious that might not be the best process, there's not much we can do about it. We don't revise the IEP. But one of the things, like, for example, that maybe I'll see is that we saw in an IEP one time while reviewing this, that a student had the accommodation of wearing a hoodie. And so that was noted on our plan, and then it was given to me. And I reached out to our associate district special ed director and case manager and said, like, hey, this is, I get it, it's in here for this reason, but it can't happen here. It's a safety concern. And so we use this document to go through that IEP with the parent and with the program instructor. The student was in our advanced manufacturing program. And I mean, you can't have a hood with strings on in there, of course. And so that's kind of one of the things we do on here. Sometimes our intervention specialist will hand me these forms that they use with their little team to go through the IEPs. And if something's noted on there, mostly I just reach out to the special ed director and case manager at our associate school district, because like I said, we don't write the IEPs, so we don't make the changes to them directly. And most of our districts have been very receptive to the feedback that we've provided and have been willing to either change the IEP, do an amendment, or at very least, we send an email home to the families informally, letting them know that maybe something on the IEP doesn't really mesh with what can be offered here at the Career Center. That is, this internal monitoring form, though, is something we're going to change next year. That's part of the changes going forward, just because paper is becoming archaic. We're going to make our internal monitoring process on a Google form. And that way, too, if ever needed to recall information, I don't have to open a drawer and try to find things. We'll be able to link all our information then to a spreadsheet and keep good track of the IEPs where we made note that something, didn't jive here at the Career Center. So that's the upcoming change. But other than that, oh, and I did fix a section on web exam accommodations. So I don't know where it went, but I had something about
There it is.
There it is. Okay. So I had wording that wasn't necessarily true. So we went through and changed that. It said students must participate in web exams, and they technically don't have to. Nobody's forcing them to. We encourage them to, and they are all supposed to, but must wasn't right. So we've tried to go through it and make sure that our wording in it is accurate, so that if a parent was reading that and said, well, I don't want my student to participate in web exams, we can't look back at this and say, well, you must, because that's not actually true.
Shelby, thanks so much for sharing. And just a shameless plug for our audience here today. Your CTE consultants, state support team consultants, have been trained and are there to help you get your CTE self-review tool done, which is the working document. The artifact that comes out of it, the final product, is what Shelby has shared with us. And again, it's been interesting, Shelby, to watch the evolution of the plan. It's continuous improvement. It's never ended, as far as I can see, with what Auburn's been doing with the communication plan.
Yeah, and our plan, I mean, I've seen a couple others that are that we've shared out that have similar things. And the way we do things here at the Career Center is I'm considered the vocational special education coordinator, or VOCE, but my role isn't the same as that position at other districts. And so when you read that and the wording is the VOCE will be doing it, well, that's because that's what they call me. And I understand that that's not the role of the VOCE at other districts. So that might be different. So when you're looking through this and you're like, wait a minute, our VOCEs aren't doing that. Well, right, because that's just what they call me. So that's why it says it.
Awesome. Shelby, this is Jody. There's also in the chat that with 150 students with IEPs, what does your intervention specialist staff look like? You kind of touched upon that, you know, VOCEs are kind of that ambiguous term and used differently in different places. So
Yeah.
if you could maybe address briefly, like, what does your special ed support staff look like?
So that's a great question. We are pretty much loaded to the max. So we operate on a half-time FTE. So each of our students count as 0.5 in our minds, because they're only here for half of the day. So our intervention specialists have a caseload of up to 48 students that they're working with. And so we have 4 intervention specialists. And then myself, that comprises our special education department. And then we have 23 programs. And so they're everywhere, all day. Our intervention specialist with the lowest program has 5. Our intervention specialist with the highest program has 7. We try to align them. Let me see if I have the by program. So, am I missing it, Bob? Oh. So sorry, you might not be able to see that. Sorry. But anyway, we tried to align our intervention specialists by programs that make sense. So our one intervention specialist is more in the trades, but then she's got a tech course and an educator course. This guy here, we try to keep him more in the web game design and interactive multimedia because he's a very techie person. This guy here has more of our trades, and then Miss Winsek, who does our career assessment specialist work as well. She has healthcare and cosmetology, and so we try to keep the programs related with our intervention specialists that are in a cluster. So if you're learning, you know, and helping students with med term for one class, it aligns with another class.
Great, thank you. Along that same line, any paraprofessionals that are supporting, you know, programs?
So yes, yes and no. So we have 2 teaching assistants that work in the building with our programs, and they're divided by program. And so with 23 programs and 2 teaching assistants, that's not many. But one of the things that has happened recently, since last school year, is, and I think this has to do with the change in our enrollment process, our associate districts have sent some educational aides into not do one-on-one support with a student, but for students that need per their IEP access to a parapro, the districts have been sending those support staff members in. And I'm the one that works really closely with them to make sure that they have access to our building, key fobs and ID badges, and that our staff knows who it is. So when they see, you know, an outside staff member walking through our halls, they know where they're going, and that they're here from our associate district to work with one of the students in particular. And that's a big change because we haven't had parapros from our associate districts in a very long time. The last time I recall is when I worked here, not for Auburn, but for the county, and we had students with physical disabilities. And now we're finding that our associate districts are more open to sending the parapros if they, you know, have a student that maybe was in gen ed classes with supports, and they're open to sending someone here, maybe not full-time, but just on a check-in basis, because with our intervention specialist having 48 students, well, up to on their caseload, there's not a lot of time to be in a program with a particular student every day. And if that need is there, our associate districts are willing to provide that support.
Great. Awesome, Shelby. I really appreciate it. I very much commend your diligence in using this as a continuous improvement and being willing to go back to the drawing board and tweak it to benefit, you know, the students that are in your districts. Thank you very much.
Yep.
Yeah, thank you, Shelby. We really appreciate you being with us here today.
No problem.
And your flexibility as well.
Yeah.
So going back to our agenda here, I think we have Eastland Fairfield Career Center, Chelsea.
I have just reached out. So if we could have North Ridgeville go first, I think I'm seeing most of their team on.
Okay, let's do that then. Quickly here, I'll go to my screen share, and our team from North Ridgeville City Schools, you see them here on our screen. Thank you for being with us today, Chris and Jackie, Caitlin, Stella, and Stephanie. We're excited to hear about your Able Not Label program that I know that Chelsea and I had the privilege of working with your team on getting things going, and I know it's in its first year, I believe. So Caitlin, I think you're going to share with us, is that correct?
Yes.
Okay.
Is it okay if I screen share from my end?
Yeah, give me a second because I've lost my, all of a sudden, there it is. Okay, I'm gonna stop sharing. Okay, you should be able to share, Caitlin.
Okay, excellent. All right, is everyone seeing my screen?
Yep.
Excellent. Okay, well, I want to start off by saying thank you so much for having us come and explain what we're doing and talk about our program. We are Able Not Label. It's a vocational program that's very community-based, and pretty much what you see in the picture here is our students in our intensive needs unit are creating apparel, and our apparel is usually focused on school spirit and positive messages. And that's the biggest part of our student ran business. But we also make mugs and oven mitts, aprons, all sorts of things. But the apparel line is the biggest piece of our program. So my name is Caitlin Carlo. I'm an intervention specialist at North Ridgeville High School. Within our unit, we have 17 students ages 15 to 21. And all of our students have significant disabilities and intensive educational needs. So this program is geared for that population. And I am one of the 4 staff members who run Able Not Label. Okay, so our mission with Able Not Label is to teach our students vocational skills that are really going to prepare them for life after high school. So the educational piece is much more important to us than the actual business end. This is an educational program, and we really focus on money management skills, social skills, vocational skills, and then working through customer service. Something unique about our program is the money that we earn for our sales, we put right back into revamping our program and also providing our students with additional community-based instruction, such as going out to eat and practicing restroom etiquette, and then paying restaurant etiquette, and then paying for the bill and things of that nature. So we do all sorts of community-based instruction with the proceeds. And the reason why it's so important that our program is community-based versus just a program that we run within our school is that we need to teach our students the skills to generalize what they are learning within the walls of our classroom and being able to apply that in the community setting. Okay, so we kind of had this realization a few years back. We had a graduating class. We had 5 students in our unit graduate. And we, after, a few months after graduation, we checked back in, see what was going on. And 3 out of the 5 of our students that graduated were unemployed and also not in an adult day program. So they were essentially sitting at home and not doing anything. And it's not because that's what the parents wanted, but it's because maybe they were in that gray area of not being ready for competitive employment, and they just needed a little bit more support than they were able to receive in competitive employment. And day programs, we know that the facilities are understaffed right now. A lot of them are closing. And if you can find one, often there's waiting lists, and they're just very long waiting lists. So at this point, myself and my co-teachers, we were like, we need to revamp our vocational program and better prepare our students because we care and we want the best for our students. So at this point, we decided to create Able Not Label. And again, it's a student-ran business, and it provides our students with that hands-on real-world work experience versus just, practicing the skills in the classroom. We are really putting something that's real and something that they're able to apply into the community. And our goal obviously is to increase our employment rates for our students upon graduation. So to start this program, you might be thinking, you have funds, but we didn't. We really didn't have any funds to start up this program. So we wrote a few grants. We did have a Cricut machine already in the district, and we wrote a grant for a heat press, 2 rolls of vinyl, and about 20 crew necks and the weeding tools. So it was about $500 worth of materials needed. So we wrote the grant, we received the grant, we received our first batch of shirts, and we made them. And then with that profit, because it was a grant, it was 100% profit, and we were able to purchase more. And with that profit, purchase more. So we were slowly able to build to the program we are today. And it cost the district absolutely no money to do it. So it's very much doable if your district is not able to afford a startup. So next year, we are going to be a career-based intervention program, and we will receive additional funding from the state for the work we're already doing. So that's really exciting. So the work production is the first piece to what our students are doing. Really, it's broken down into two main areas. We have work production, and then we have that customer service piece. So I'm going to walk you through the work production flow of what our students do to make the shirts. Step 1, if anyone's familiar with how a Cricut machine is, that's where it all begins. You can see it in this picture here. The purple machine is a Cricut machine, and what it does is it cuts very intricate designs on vinyl, and it syncs up with your computer and your software on your computer. So the first step is to run that Cricut machine and get the vinyl cut. So then once the vinyl is cut, we move to step 2, which is weeding. And this is when the students are removing the background of the vinyl. So all that's left on that transfer sheet is the image we actually want on the shirt. So this is it's called weeding. And this is probably one of the first steps we teach our students in the whole realm of what we do. It's weeding. Once it's weeded, we move it over to heat press. So this station, we take the vinyl, we align it on the shirt, and students need to use an alignment tool because we don't want to just slap a piece of vinyl onto a shirt and press it. We want to make sure it's center, it's, you know, not too high, not too low, and it's even. So they're using measurement skills to place the vinyl, and then using a heat press, which is like a huge iron. It's a very hot piece of equipment that provides a lot of pressure onto the garment, and that will make that vinyl kind of permanently adhere to the apparel that we are pressing. So once we do that step, it moves over to quality check. And you can see in this picture, we have a student doing quality check. The first part of quality check is doing exactly what it's called. She's checking the quality of the apparel. So she takes her hands and she runs it over the shirt and looking for any vinyl that might not be pressed fully, any misspellings, anything that might be wrong with the apparel that we would need to fix, because we do want to provide good quality apparel. So she's doing the quality check. Once she approves that it is of great quality, she goes and tags it. So we have a care instruction card, a thank you card, and then the price tag. And you can see she's using a very standard tagging gun that you would see at any retail store. So, you know, if they were to find employment in a retail store, they are already familiar with how to use this, this tagging gun. From quality check, we move it to inventory management. And in inventory management, this is like the last piece of production where they take that finished product and then they are going to get it ready for it to be sold. So if it's a custom order, that student is double checking, making sure that order form matches the apparel that we made, and also tagging that apparel. So when the customer comes in, we can easily find it and give it to the customer. The other part of it would be like if it's an item that we're planning on selling on the rack, that student is going to track the inventory that we made through a Google sheet and then move it to the rack in our store in the appropriate place based on its size. So those are the steps for the production. Once it gets through production, we move it over into customer service. And this is where we do more of like the front of the house tasks. So after it's been through inventory management, we take it over to the computer. And if it's a custom order, we're sending out an email for the customer, letting them know that their item is ready. We have this as a differentiated task because some of our students are able to construct an email from start to finish and some can't, and that's okay. You know, we're all about accommodating and putting modifications in place. So some of our students will use a template like what you see here, and all they need to do is swap out some of the wording. For example, if they're selling a hoodie, hoodies are $30, not $15. So their job would be to update this template so it fits the customer and let them know that they can pick it up. Then we are bagging and folding the item. Some of our students need help folding. So we do have the folding mats. As you can see, the student here is using a folding mat to help him fold that hoodie. Obviously, if they don't need the folding mat, we don't encourage them to use it. We want them to be as independent as possible, but we do have those supports in place for the students who do need it. And then if it is an order that we can deliver within our school, we have a student go and do those deliveries. And this student is a nonverbal student who uses a switch to greet the customer and thank them for their business as he delivers. And then the last piece to it is the transaction piece, which is a huge part of it. This is probably my favorite and I think most meaningful piece to it because it really incorporates the money management skills. So we do take cash, credit, and check. So cash, obviously, we're practicing counting money, making change, sorting money, but also the credit and check skills. You know, they're becoming familiar with the parts of a check and parts of a card. And when they're filling out manually an order that's being paid for online, they are identifying the security number on the back. They're, you know, identifying the expiration date. So they're learning all the pieces to the card, the checks, and then also practicing the cash transactions. For students who, again, are in a little bit more need of support, we do have a script that they can follow, and it kind of goes through the steps of what they need to do as well. And then some students have learned this skill and are able to do this without a script. So that's what we eventually want to see, is them be as independent as possible, but we do have those supports in place for those who need them. So what we're doing, we've done this over the past 2 school years. We're going into our 3rd year of Able Not Label. Our first year, like I said, was just our startup year. We ordered just a handful of crew necks and t-shirts. We made a handful of items, and we were really just selling them to the staff in the school and the teachers. We were doing it all out of my classroom, and you can see we were literally working off of a projector card.
Yeah, I need you. Well, I'm not up there yet.
So that was year 1, very low key, small, and just kind of getting our feet wet. The students were learning the skill. Moving into year 2, we wanted to kind of push it a little bit further and make this more community based. So this is the year we started doing pop-up shops. And a pop-up shop is essentially, we go to community events like football games or craft fairs, and we set up a shop right there and we sell our items. And this is when the community really got to learn what we were doing and embrace what we were doing. So we got really great community feedback. And the best part about a pop-up shop is it's getting them outside of the classroom. It's getting them in the community. And again, they're practicing generalizing the skills. Initially, it was kind of surprising that they were so good at it in the classroom, doing the transactions and working with the customers because they're familiar faces. But then you go into the community and you have them do the exact same thing with people they're not as familiar with, and they struggle. It's a different setting, they're not used to it, and they're unfamiliar people. So that generalizing that skill was very apparent. That is something that we need to continue to focus on. This is also the year that we started taking custom orders. And I don't know if it was the pop-up shops, the custom orders, or a mixture of both, but our sales exploded this year. This is the year that we really took off. So this past June, we were able to open a store in our community. It's about not even a 5-minute drive from our high school. So our students are able to hop on the bus during the school day and go and work in their store instead of the classroom for an hour and a half every single day. And the community members are able to come in and shop and pick up their custom orders. The space is perfect for us because we have a production room, which you can see there's a garage door that opens into the production room. It's a big space where we can still do all of our stations, but there's also an attached smaller store that we're able to do the transactions and the sales from. So it's a really great situation for what we needed it for. And that we had a big grand opening. We had a party. You can see one of our students here is reading a script because he was our MC for the event. And he was, thanking everybody who helped us get there and just doing all the announcements. And we did a ribbon cutting. It was a really special day for us. So obviously there's a million benefits to this program, but the main areas that we focus on are the employability and soft skills, teaching the money management skills, enhancing their social skills, and then also practicing daily living skills. So they're, folding clothes, they're reading written directions, they're sending emails, they're doing basic cleaning. So there's a lot of daily living skills built into this that they also benefit from practicing. And then again, our profit that we make from our sales goes right back into our community programs of, taking them out to eat or practicing healthy leisure activities, or we'll take them grocery shopping for items that we might take back to the school and cook. So we're practicing so many skills, so many daily living skills as a result of our success with this program. All right, so we use a variety of techniques, obviously working with this population of students. We use a lot of task analysis checklists. Here's an example of one of them. Each station that I went through for our work production has a TA hanging at that workstation. So whether students need them or they don't, they can reference them. And each task analysis checklist has the materials they need for that particular station, and then it's broken down exactly step by step what they need to do. We do a lot of role playing and modeling, obviously the use of many visuals, and some students do require hand over hand. But since this is such a literally hands-on activity, it's all very adaptable for all students. Again, we use scripts. if students need them. And then we do a lot of fated prompting and scaffolding throughout the process. So we do take data and we have assessments for each station that they work. So if you look, this is an example of one of our assessments. It's the heat press assessment. And it's essentially that task analysis that is displayed at their station. I'm sorry, they're doing announcements if you can hear them. Sorry about that. It's essentially that task analysis checklist, and it's broken down into a rubric form. So we're monitoring if students are able to do each of those steps independently, consistently with prompting, inconsistently with prompting, or they're not able to demonstrate it at all, even with prompting. So from there, we're able to create a mastery percentage and track it on our overall assessment sheet. And our overall assessment sheet has all of those stations broken down. And we give this assessment throughout the school year several times. And so we can really track where they were at the beginning of the year in each of these stations and where they are at the end of the year. And hopefully we see some growth. We started this assessment last year, and within the first 3 months of assessing our students, we saw growth up to 26% in some students within 3 months of independence. So that's exactly what we want to see. And that tells us that what we're doing is working. Teaching professionalism is a big piece to this. As you can see in our picture, our students do wear a work uniform. They also have a badge that they wear. On the back of the badge is a QR code that they use to clock in and out of every shift, and it tracks their hours. We really want to teach them not only how to look professional, but how to act professional, and also teaching them those responsibilities that come when you have a job. So getting ready for work, clocking in and out. They do opening duties at the beginning of every shift and closing duties at the end of every shift. And then also our students will earn a paycheck. It's not a real paycheck, but based off of how many hours and what their hourly rate is, they calculate their paychecks, and then they track their expenses and income throughout the year. And expenses being, we will say we're going out to eat, we're going to budget for $20. And then when we come back from that restaurant, we might take that receipt and balance their check register, essentially. So they're really, getting a lot of math practice and learning about the differences between income and expenses through this process. Each student has their own job title. So, we have a manager, we have an assistant manager, but we also have students who are coordinators, associates. Our freshman this year who's learning everything, we're referring to him as our intern because he's learning the jobs. And then we have specialists. So each student has a specific job that is just for them. Although all of the students do all of the jobs that I reviewed in our workflow, they all have an area of expertise. So the cool thing about the job titles is this allows the students to climb the ladder. We have some pretty ambitious students, and they're already eyeing that manager position because our manager is going to be graduating this year. So you see some students already talking like, well, who's going to be the manager? I want to be the manager. And I'm like, okay, well, what do managers do? They're leaders. They encourage others. They're helpful. So we see students kind of stepping up and really wanting to climb that ladder. This also teaches the students about the chain of command. So, which you see in work everywhere. You have managers, you have associates, you have, supervisors. So it's teaching them the chain of command as well. When they have an area of expertise, they are responsible for training new students. So if they are the heat press operator, they might be the ones that are training the intern on how to use the heat press. And it gives our students a lot of pride. Our students are really proud of their positions. And this has been a fun part of what we do, is really enhancing those work titles and students feeling really proud about what they're doing. Something we're going to implement this year is we're going to allow students to apply for these positions. And what they'll do is they'll fill out an application. So they're practicing that skill and will require references. So those are all things we talk about, but we're going to actually implement that this year. And then we will do an interview process where we expect our students to dress for an interview, come to the conference room, and go through the interview process. And that will determine the job titles this year. So that's something we're going to be implementing this year, and I'm excited about. Every month we hold staff meetings. So we get all 17 students together in one room, and we review the sales and the expenses of that month. We name an employee of the month, and the students love this. And it's like every staff meeting, we have tears in our eyes because it's like one of those very heartfelt moments because our students are so encouraging of each other, and they're so proud of whoever gets named the employee of the month, and the pride that our students receive when they are the employee of the month is really exciting. We also talk about upcoming projects that we're going to be working on. We have an open discussion, which encourages the social skills, and we make votes on any changes to our business or any new procedures we want to implement, we vote on. So the students are very much involved in how we operate our program. It's not a program where I tell them what we are going to do. It's a program where they are involved in making decisions. And yeah, it really is a student-ran program. We also have a lot of opportunities where we're able to collaborate with their typical peers. We have peers that come in and volunteer in our classroom to assist with some of these tasks. And at this point, a lot of them are teaching the peers that come in to help. You can see in this picture up here, we had our entrepreneur class, which is a general education classroom. They came to our store as a field trip, and just to kind of learn what we do and to learn from our students. And you can see in this picture, I love this picture on the top because our student here in the navy blue sitting is one of our students who's weeding, and he's teaching the gen ed students in this entrepreneur class how to do the weeding. So that collaboration is really fun. And it's I think really beneficial for our general education population to see how amazing our students are and that they can learn from them as well. We also collaborate with a lot of our clubs and sports teams in our district. And for, if we're making a shirt for the tennis team and we sell however many shirts, $3 of every shirt goes back to the tennis team. So we are very much embracing and supporting other programs within our district as they support us. So that collaboration piece has been wonderful. And our alumni, we still try to include them in Able Not Label. So I have permission to share Nadia's story. This is Nadia. She's one of the students that was pictured, one of those, one of the 3 out of the 5 students that are sitting at home, not employed. And Nadia thrived with Able Not Label when she was with us. And then she graduated and she wasn't ready for employment, but she still had a lot of potential. And we have been able to include her in a lot of what we're doing. She was at our grand opening. She still works a lot of pop-up shops with our students. And she loves Able Not Label, and she's thriving. And her mom says it's given her so much purpose outside of, her day-to-day life, because it's getting her out and doing some work. It's a volunteer base. We don't pay Nadia, and she knows that it's volunteer, but she loves what she does. And so she's very much involved in what we do. And that ultimately is where we're circling back where it all began, is really reaching the students that are in that gray area where they're not ready for competitive employment, but they still have the potential. And so this is seeing Nadia's involvement and hopefully future students' involvement has been really meaningful to us. So that is our spiel. I know it was a lot. Again, we started really small and we are not so small now, but it didn't happen overnight. So are there any questions?
Caitlin, I have been getting so many questions behind the scenes, so we appreciate you sharing all of this stuff. So the first and biggest question is, why are you choosing CBI over a job training program? And I'm going to say that I think it's because you guys were anticipating enrolling typical peers alongside the Able Not Label students next year when you become that program. Can you talk about that?
Yes. So, as I said, we try to make this as student driven as possible, but there are components of this that our students are just not able to do. We have a big social media following, and that's something that I end up doing. So there's a lot in the website. We have a website, and I'm not great at updating the website, but that's something that our students would struggle with. And also like the design space piece to it, creating the designs in the software. It's something that we're working on with our students, but they're not there yet. And those are really challenging tasks. So what our big picture goal would be to bring in some of the general education population and have them take over some of the things that fall on my plate and the other teachers' plates. So it's truly 100% student led. So they would be doing, some of the skills that are a little bit more challenging that our students aren't able to do. They're not taking jobs from our students, but they are enhancing the program and collaborating. And that's ultimately our goal. I talked to you guys about the entrepreneurship class. It's a general education class, and they do what we do, but in like a larger scale. And they do a lot more of like that business end. And last year they sold pet bowls, so like cat and dog bowls, customized, and we were their vendor. So we made the bowls, but then they went and advertised it and sold the bowls and did all that. So we definitely anticipate more of a general education collaboration piece to this.
And then the other big hitter before we let you go is students are earning credit for these opportunities, right? And they're also counting as work-based learning hours.
Yes. And we go to other sites, like we work at Winking Lizard and Heinen's, and we do take our students to other places in the community. So it's not just able, not label. We want them to be exposed to many different jobs. So they are definitely getting that work experience. But yeah, that's essentially where we're at with that.
That's awesome. So we super appreciate you. Thank you very much.
Thank you. I appreciate it. And if anyone has questions, our email's up there. Feel free to reach out. I could talk about Able Not Label all day long. So I'm happy to answer any other questions that might come in. Okay.
Thank you, Caitlin. Thank you, North Ridgeville team. We appreciate you being here with us today.
Thank you.
Okay, well, hey, moving along, everybody. This is the action-packed meeting. Next up, we have with us Amy Zemansky, who is going to talk to us about the Ohio Administrative Code and operating standards for the education of children with disabilities. So, Amy, do you need to screen share?
I would like to screen share. Yes, that would be wonderful. Thanks, Bob.
Okay, you should be able to go.
All right. And good morning to everyone. As Bob said, my name is Amy Zemansky. I am with the Office for Exceptional Children. And I'm going to drop a link in the chat real quickly before I share my screen. This is going to take you to the website where we have the rules that we are going to be discussing. And I do apologize, I am losing my voice. I thought it would be better by today, and it is still not there yet. So apologize for the scratchiness. I will now share my screen. And we will get started. And please go ahead and drop questions in the chat. Happy to ask them as they come. And then we'll also take a couple minutes at the end to address any that I wasn't able to talk about while I'm presenting. The links that I shared with you are the operating standards and guidance for the education of children with disabilities. And I'm sure, as you all know, we have had a variety of updates which went into effect July 1st, 2023. You will see the direct links to these areas within Ohio Administrative Code. And I do highly recommend that you click on these actual links and read this code, because you will not find it in the printed format that we had previously yet. So as it says here, we're going to be publishing them in a printed format, but we're not there. So those old books that you have, and I'm sure that are very well worn, if they look anything like mine, they're dilapidated. But the information I'm going to share here is not all in those books right now. So I just want to make sure that's really clear. Where we're going to focus today is on definitions, which is 3301, 5101. And then also on delivery of services, which is 3301, 5109. Okay. So I'm going to take you to 3301, 5101 and share with you the newest definition that has been added. So this is a brand new definition that we have added to Ohio Administrative Code. Excuse me, and this is regarding coordinating transition services. So if we scroll down, we'll look into B, which is definitions, and we'll be under B13 or coordinating transition services. So I do apologize for the scrolling if this is something that causes some difficulty visually. Please look away until I scroll there, but I do want you to see kind of where it even sits within the rules. So it's a bit down there. We go through the disability categories, and then we will land right here on what it means to coordinate transition services. We have used this language in the operating standards previously. What we haven't done is specifically placed it into a definition related to coordinate transition services. It was kind of a combination of coordinate and provide transition services, and we really separated this out. So it's much more clear on what the roles and responsibilities are, what the service delivery looks like when we coordinate transition services. So you'll see that there are specific areas, A through H, that talk specifically about, as you can imagine, coordinating transition services. So this is related to part 5 of the IEP, but actually bigger than that. It's all about how we ensure that the information within part 5 is coordinated for all of our students in our respective school districts. So I want you to kind of just take a second to look that piece, the A through H. I'm not going to read it to you, but you can certainly take a minute and review that. And then I'm going to transfer this over to delivery of services, where we're going to talk a little bit more about specifically the roles and responsibilities, the qualifications and skills, and then the caseloads and workloads, which I know all of you guys are really excited to see. So give you a second there, and then I'm going to zoom over to 09. And here we are, voila. The 3301, 5109, delivery of services. This is really the nitty gritty of how we are providing our services for students with disabilities. And I'm going to take you down to sections G, H, and I. So again, excuse my scroll, but I do want you to just kind of get an idea of where this sits. So we've got all kinds of things, placements, non-academic settings, and then we get to G, which is the role of preschool and school age service providers. You'll see under G1 that we have a responsibility as an educational agency. Another definition that I didn't highlight, but I think I probably should at this point too, is that we have expanded the definition of educational agency to also include joint vocational school districts. In the past, we've seen education agency encompassing everything for joint vocational school districts. And now that joint vocational school district is combined within the educational agency definition. So you'll see that we need to assign school age intervention specialists to provide indirect or direct services. And you'll see the combination of instructional groupings, large group, small group, individual instruction, et cetera. So there's the first and foremost a requirement that we have a school age intervention specialist assigned to our students. Number 2, it talks about what the specific responsibilities are for individuals who are serving as either childhood, a school age intervention specialist, or related service provider. You'll see that this is bigger and broader than the coordinate transition services from A through H, right? This is very specific to looking at FAPE, so looking at regular education service supports, work within the regular classroom, parent involvement. And I think really importantly here is that educational interventions and specially designed instruction to address unique needs of students and ensure access to the general curriculum. Sorry about that. So, just lost it. You know what's the cool thing is though, is I learned that if you go up to the top here, you can actually, excuse me for that, you can just go next and you'll see all of the rules. So here's a little tutorial in the meantime. 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. 9. There's all your sections. So I'm gonna scroll back down to, geez, sorry about that. I have too many things happening on one screen. I'm at another conference right now and I don't have both my screens available. So there's your school age service provider definition and the role. Now I'm going to scroll down a little bit more to to H, which gets into the personnel qualifications and personnel development. We've got the information related specifically to any of the individuals that are providing the special education services, which it talks about related service personnel. Excuse my scroll, but I'm just going to keep showing you kind of how this sits. The qualifications for what a special education teacher would need to have. These pieces are not new, just so you're aware too. Qualifications for supervisory personnel. And then we get down here, and this is qualifications for transition services. Transition services shall be coordinated. We already saw what the definition of coordination is, right? And provided by individuals who have these competencies, experiences, and training. This had previously been in operating standards as well. We've just moved it into the delivery of service section where it really should have been from the beginning. It's just as we redo our rules every 5 years. And 5 years ago, it was placed in the introductory section and just been moved back out. So we were able to finally put it in the spot where it should have been all along. So this talks about the importance of having either transitional work endorsement, which is required for the job training coordination program, and it's the only place which it's required, or having the skills and knowledge that we define in the administrative code, which is under coordinate transition services, or some of the definitions related to intervention specialists. If you are providing transition services, I want you to really think about the difference here between coordinating and providing. Coordinating is kind of that bigger, broader scope of making sure that all the transition services are aligned, as we know that they are, they need to be a part of a coordinated set of activities, right? If you are providing transition services within the child's IEP, okay, so specifically part 5, and it says who's providing the transition services, and there's that little section, right? It writes whose name is providing the services. This is what we're talking about in B. If you're providing those services, not necessarily coordinating them all, providing them, we just need to make sure that you have whatever responsibility or whatever roles and service skills that are related to that particular role that you're filling the team. Okay, so that's kind of the roles and the knowledge that you have to have. Nitty gritty, right? Service provider workload determination. Okay. First of all, I want you to look at what it means. I'm sorry, I love the pictures of all of you on top of these words. Give me 1 second. Just move this around. There we go. Alrighty. So workload. And this is for an individual service provider. Okay. Take a second and look at what this workload is. These are all of the things that you would be doing in addition to teaching. So the additional kinds of work that's going on in your day-to-day life. This is your workload. This impacts the number of students that you'll be serving. We have specific rules that say what the service ratios need to be, but all of this also weighs in. So there may be situations where when I talk about these caseloads or service provider ratios, that it may actually end up being less if you are not able to balance what you have here with the number of students that you're serving. Okay, so I just want you to keep that in mind. Then we move into school age service providers. Remember that up above, I had shared that school age service providers are the intervention specialists. Transition coordinators, transition coordination sits outside and in addition to this piece, right? So a school age service provider AKA in this case, an intervention specialist, or, you know, if we have a related service provider, but you'll see that's in another section. They have specific limits for profession. And then we go through all of the different categories of disability. So you'll see, and I'm not going to spend too much time on each of these, but I just want you to see how it's broken down. So it talks about how many students an intervention specialist shall serve with the elementary, middle, junior high levels, or they call it senior high school, right? If it's a high school. So high school level, 24 children with intellectual disabilities. And then it goes into how many students you can serve within an instructional period. So there's service, and then there's within an instructional period. And you'll notice that oftentimes that number is less than what you see here, right? You can serve 24 students with intellectual disabilities at the high school level, but within an instructional period, we have 16. There's an age range, right? So I'm just going to show, so specific learning disabilities, 24 at the high school, 12 in an instructional period. 10 children with hearing impairments, you can see the rest there, 8 during an instructional period. 12 students with emotional disturbances, 10 during an instructional period. Here we need a plan on file or a full-time paraprofessional. 8 children with multiple disabilities, and that's across all grade levels. No more than 8 children in an instructional period. We need to have 1 full-time professional or a professional in the class. No more than 6 children with autism, deaf, blindness, or traumatic brain injury. And that is within the service delivery and the number of students in the classroom, and 1 full-time paraprofessional. Right? Now, what is most applicable, I would imagine, to all of you is serving multiple categories of children with disabilities. Right? So all of those other disability categories that we shared. The ratio for this service is determined in accordance with paragraph I-1 of the rule. Was that workload that we talked about? Cannot exceed 24 children at the high school level. So that's service. These are school-age providers, intervention specialists, cannot exceed more than 24 at the high school level. Now, what you need to think about too is then we can have 24 children at the instructional in an instructional period. But we do have to think about that workload, and we have to ensure that we're able to provide FAPE. If we're not able to provide FAPE with 24 students, then we're going to need to be balancing out that ratio. We're also going to need to look back at how many students with multiple disabilities, how many students with learning disabilities, how many students with intellectual disabilities can be served in one classroom to kind of balance out that ratio within your mixed ability classroom. Okay, all of that is your intervention specialist. I'm going to stop for a minute and see what kind of questions we have. Thank you for putting those in there. Whoever's dropping those links, I appreciate it. Then we get into the related service providers, right? So just hold down here. We have a service space, pathologists, etc., psychologist services. Okay. Then we get to transition services, number 4. This is where we have the biggest change. We had originally listed vocational special educator and work study coordinator and a caseload. As you can see, those 2 caseloads are no longer here. And that's because, as you can also see, there really wasn't a specific role or responsibility tied to those specific titles. We really need to get back to what is the service that is being provided and work from there. Okay, so that's why you see words like coordinate transition service, provide transition service. We aren't calling them any specific name. If your title is of OC, that doesn't mean you can't have a title of OC. You know, districts can determine the titles that they feel are most appropriate for their particular districts. However, we need to look specifically at what you are doing. What services are you providing? And align those workload caseload ratios to that. Okay, so I think that's the part that people are going to really need to go back and really pay attention to. And also ensuring that we definitely have school-age service providers who are providing that specially designed instruction for the students. You'll see here that it says that transition services shall be coordinated by personnel. We've already talked about the skills and knowledge that they need. If you are doing what we defined coordinate transition services as in 113, right? 3301510113, this applies to you. So if you're providing coordinating transition services to students, 75 children with disabilities age 14 through 21 or younger if it's appropriate, right? So 75. 75 is balancing the 50 and 75 caseloads that we had for OC and work study. So 75 is where the public comment kind of finalized. If you are more in a supervisory capacity, if you are actually supervising intervention specialists who are coordinating or providing transition services, then that moves to 20 intervention specialists. That aligns directly with the number of individuals that someone in a supervisory role can oversee. So that is no different. That caseload is exactly the same as a supervisory role. If there is someone who is simply providing the transition services, as you see in an IEP, right? If you're named as the person who's providing the transition services, you're not coordinating it, then we need to be ensuring that you are possessing, whatever the skills and knowledge is that is related to your particular role. If you're coordinating and providing transition services, if you're doing both, that happens a lot. We have an intervention specialist who has a caseload of students. They're providing those transition services and they're coordinating the transition services for all of those students on their caseload. If that's the case and you're operating as a school age provider, or maybe you're a related service provider in the role of a speech language pathologist, for example, that then kicks you back to whatever the workload caseload is for your specific job responsibility. If you're an intervention specialist, it's 24. If you are a speech language pathologist, that goes to, to that caseload. So it's really going to be, again, going back to what are you doing and how does that align to that caseload? We're not trying to change titles or anything of that nature. We're just trying to ensure that every student is receiving the services that they need and that no one is getting overloaded with students. Because then you can't do what you know is best for kids because you've just got too much going on. So I'm going to stop there. I know I've gone a little bit over, but I wanted to make sure we're really clear based on some questions that we got from the last meeting we were in. I wanted to be a little more thorough so we didn't have too much discrepancy in the knowledge that people had. So I'm going to here see any additional questions. So Bob, what do you think? Are you or Chelsea getting anything in the background that I'm not seeing?
No, I have not received anything, Amy.
Okay. All right. Well, I'm going to stop sharing my screen then. And I'll kick it back to you. Does anyone want to unmute? I'll give you like a 30-second chance. I don't want to keep people too long.
Hi, Amy. Thank you for sharing. It's Jen Ryder with Akron Public Schools.
Hey.
Hi there. Just for clarification, I know in our title as job training coordinators, everyone thinks that we are coordinators of transition services. And then that would mean that we would have like that 75, but that is necessarily the case because we're providing the services as well. And I think sometimes in our district or across the state, they get confused and they see it as coordinators, not the provider of the service. But
right. Yep. I would say if you, Jen, what I would look at is 33015109, and then move down to what would that be, 4C, where it talks about individuals who are providing and coordinating, and you're acting as an intervention specialist essentially, right?
correct. We coordinate the experiences out in the community, but we're also providing grades and out in the community.
Yep.
So.
Yeah, exactly. And also under the JTC, Chelsea, correct me if I'm wrong, right? We have a 12 student ratio. So I mean that also corresponds. I mean, if you're already got are you shaking your head? What is the
there's not a specific ratio. It's going to depend on the makeup of the students.
Perfect. Okay,
based
that's
on
right.
that,
Okay.
how many can be served in one instructional period.
That's right. Okay. Thank you. Sorry. Wow. I didn't mean to miss that. Sorry.
That was the old one, Amy. That before Chelsea came in. That was 8 to 15. I think that's where you're coming up with.
Heaven to Betsy. Now, yeah, my brain doesn't always
Thank you.
Uh-oh, everybody's
Uh,
asking me to repeat that. There is no specific
I ruined
class
it.
size limit for job training. It's going to be based on those rules that Amy just showed us, how many students can be served in any one instructional period. So we're going to look at the makeup of those students, and again, ensure that we're able to meet all of their needs with the staffing that's provided. So if we're serving the correct population of students in a job training program, we're looking at, 8 students being able to be served. If we're talking about multiple disabilities, if it's only students with autism, we're looking at 6. So we have to just very carefully consider what the capacity of our instructors are in balancing all of the other responsibilities that come with being a job training coordinator, which really is, making sure that they're a lab teacher, just like any other career tech lab teacher, so that they have that time to do the work with their students.
There was a question, the 24 cap.
The law says that the cap is 24. If we look carefully at the number of students that can be served in one instructional period, we just have to make that decision very carefully on the total number of students in each section of the GTC.
I have a question also going along with that. So, they say that there's a ratio of 6 with autism and 8 for multiple disabilities, but cross-categorically it can be, I'm sorry, I don't remember the number, 12, or is that the 24, the cross-categorical?
Yes.
Yep.
So, I mean, when you have 8 students that have multiple disabilities and then 6 with autism and you're combining them, technically that's cross-categorical. Do you have any advice? Or at that point, are you looking at need? Or do you know what I'm saying? Like
100%.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah.
100% looking at need. I mean, that cap is technically 24. Amy, go ahead.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I was going to say, yeah, I mean, I'm going along with Chelsea. Exactly. So Christina, I mean, we get these calls all the time. The bottom line is, are you able to provide a free and appropriate public education to the students in your class? And if you are not, then you need to go back and look at what that case is. There's not, anywhere in the state that someone's going to say, oh, well, you know what, you're at 24, so you got to do it. It really is depending on a variety of student needs. So yeah, it could be less. That is just kind of, it's no more than. It certainly could be less than depending on student need.
Okay, thank you.
All right, Chelsea, I think that we're good. So I'm gonna kick it over to you for the framework.
That would be lovely. That depends too on my fearless leader. How are we looking on time, everybody? Do we want to skip to Jody, or do we want me to try to plow through the framework?
Chelsea, this is Jody. Actually, I think that when we talked about, like, mine, it really is about the value of using the self-review summary tool to, roll out communication guides. My only other point when that was that, any district who is doing an SSIP, they may be asking career centers to tag team with them to do the self-review for serving students with disabilities in a career tech setting. That was really my own thing. We can touch base. I think you have a very good section. So I think we could skip mine if we have to.
Awesome. Thanks, everybody. And what Jody is talking about, the SSIP, or the State Systemic Improvement Plan, the office is shortly going to have announcements going out to joint vocational school districts about your role in that plan. And so be on the lookout for that coming from us. All right, let's go ahead and bring up those slides again then, Bob, if you would, please. All right, so just a quick conversation about job training coordination and the decision-making framework that exists for student placement. So first, we're going to talk about what job training coordination even is. Truly, a job training program is that which serves our most significant cognitive disabilities, or students with in community-based work experience and balance of also classroom instruction to fill their gaps in employability and then also in technical skills. And the goal for every student in a job training program, as is the state for every student in Ohio, is to leave the program and graduate ready for competitive integrated employment with or without supports. We can absolutely 100% still be counted as having competitive integrated employment if we are receiving additional supports or job coaching services through our partner providers in the state. It's also a full workforce development pathway. It is the same as any other lab. And the outcomes for the students in that lab is to pursue their preferences, interests, needs, and strengths in a career that matters to them, that is also sustainable. The absolute dream for every student is to have at least 2 years in a job training program so that they can truly build up those skills. And then by the time they're ready to leave the program, they're already placed in a position that they can hold for the next several years, potentially, of their life. So again, sustainable outcomes for our students. So some scenarios that we've been hearing about around the state. So in the first case, we've got a student who is coming to a career center with a physical disability, and they do not in any way have a cognitive disability. The IEP supports the need for an aid. So they're not sure if the student belongs in a JTC program because they would need additional supports. Let's go to the next slide, Bob, to talk about that. So we're going to put a link to the decision-making framework in the chat. I'm sure that a lot of you on the call are already familiar with this framework. The placement for a job training program ultimately is always going to be determined by the IEP team, but we have to first consider, is this placement truly the least restrictive environment for the student? If we're talking about a program that is only for students with cognitive disabilities, we are truly limiting the students' options to participate alongside typical peers and potentially to earn industry credentials and have different experiences. So we have to be very cognizant of the gravity of these kinds of decisions. For those who it serves, job training programs are absolutely amazing. But to any student that can access traditional career technical education with supports, with modifications, that's where they should be. Unless a student, for whatever reason, is not able to access a traditional program, even with those modifications, that's when we would look at placing them in a job training program. It's also super important to remember that job training is just like any other lab in career tech. So there should not be any admission requirements, no interviews, no expectations of additional responsibilities on the part of the parent or the student to get to or from a site. It should be treated just like any other lab, and students that require the services of a GTC should be able to be placed there. So another option of a scenario, we have a student who has successfully completed 2 years in a program. They've passed all their web exams, but parents aren't quite ready for whatever reason for that student to leave secondary education. So there's a consideration to put that student into a job training program. If this student has successfully completed a pathway, do they need to go into another pathway? So we need to really think about job training as being a full-on workforce development pathway, because it is, with that goal and that outcome. Potentially, if the parents feel as though this student needs additional training or additional supports to be employed or to move on to whatever their post-secondary goals are, there's an option for that student to defer graduation and stay in that same career tech program. Although it seems as though, given this scenario, they've successfully completed it, so there shouldn't be a need under those circumstances. So this student would not be a good candidate for job training. And then another option, things that we've seen around the state, is that students are accepted into a career tech program that aligns with their transition goals and aligns with their PINs, AATA says this is going to be the best pathway for this student. But the IEP team or the Career Center team becomes concerned that a student won't pass the web exam. That's not really a reason to disallow a student from enrolling in a program. As we heard earlier, there is no requirement, first of all, for a student to take those web exams. We're going to do whatever it is that's in the best interest of the student. If a student's able to participate in a lab, they should be in that lab. The other concern is that because we're worried about not passing the web exam, we're going to put them in that lab and then place them on a JTC roster so that they don't have to take the web exam. If a student is full-time participating in a lab, they're enrolled in that lab with or without taking the web exam. So we need to make sure that we don't have these students who are isolated in a JTC roster. If you're not receiving the same services, the classroom-based instruction and then community-based work experience that students in a JTC are having, then you are a student in a traditional lab, and that's where you should be enrolled. So things to think about. We have to make sure that in almost every case that traditional career tech programs are open to all populations of students, even those with significant needs. Our students can be successful with appropriate accommodations and modifications. We shouldn't judge whether a student can or should participate in a program based on the possibility of their success in that program. Instead, it's the growth and the experience and the opportunity to participate alongside their typical peers and all of the benefits that will bring. And then the last piece that I really want to emphasize is that job training coordination is the only program in all of career tech that can and should be composed only of students with disabilities. Anything else, putting all students with disabilities into one program or altering curriculum or limiting their opportunities to earn industry credentials or college credits, violates the Civil Rights Guidelines of 1979. So we have to make sure that all of our programs provide our students with equal opportunity to be successful and to learn everything that they possibly can. I do see that Harley asked the question, if a student does not take the web exam, will it count against the QPR metrics for the course? So the answer to that is kind of, but not really. You don't have to have 100% of the students taking the web exam. We want over 90% of students to be taking the test for it to not count against you. Of course, we want every student to take it, but if it's not in the best interest of one student, we're always going to do what's best for the kid.
Hey, Chelsea, it's Melissa. I just want to clarify what you said about that's the only time you can have a program devised of students with like a full program. However, isn't it true if there's a specialized school offering a career tech program, then that would be okay as well?
If we're not limiting the experience to just students with disabilities in a general population setting, if all of the students enrolled in a particular setting have a specific disability, then of course, if we're serving that population of students. But if we're taking a typical population of students, which is only 15% students with disabilities, there should never be one program that is only for those students.
Gotcha. And that's what I was getting at. We have a couple schools in the Cincinnati area that are
yes, absolutely. As long as we're truly equitably serving
Yeah.
our student population, whatever that looks like, then we're good to go.
Perfect. Thanks.
Anybody else have questions on that? You can always reach out to us.
Chelsea, real quick, I just want to add to just
Yeah.
for additional clarification, there would be very, very, very limited circumstances in which we would say that it would be appropriate for a student not to assess for a course that they're enrolled in. So I just want to clarify that. I appreciate the nuance that you're offering kind of with the assessment of the web exams, but I want to be very clear to everyone on the call that, again, fearing that a student may not pass the assessment is not necessarily an appropriate reason to not assess them. There would, again, be very, very, very limited circumstances. And if we need to develop additional guidance, or if you want to have a conversation with your CTP consultant or Chelsea to kind of define that further, we're happy to do that. But just want to make sure everyone understands that for the significant majority of our students, when they are enrolled in CTE coursework, they should be taking the aligned assessment. They should have the opportunity to take the aligned assessment.
Thank you for that clarification, Brenda. I was not very clear now.
No, you're fine.
Awesome. Bob shared the driving wheel with me. I feel like I'm a student driver here. So I hope I'm sharing the screen that says serving students with disabilities. This really, I'll go through this very quickly. I also put in the chat the link for folks who need to get out exactly at 11 to fill out some feedback. Please do that. We do want your feedback. We do want to continue to improve along with you. So do that. Here was just we're here as career tech consultants to help you make connections and make your jobs a little bit easier. And then ultimately to avoid ever, being caught in a position where you have to learn from your mistakes the hard way. For instance, like Auburn to do the OEC audit before they realized how valuable the communication guide could be. So, I think that if we look at this, everything is connected. Perkins 5, very much is centered on, positive outcomes for students in regards to employment, enrollment, enlistment. So, when we look at the self-review guide for serving students with disabilities, it very much is centered around kind of the outline that Auburn shared with us. How do we recruit students? How do we select and place them? Or how do we make sure that we're providing the appropriate services? And then, very much like Auburn is now is, how do we continue to improve? So all of the career tech consultants, like Bob indicated, have been trained. We can help you walk through that process by doing some self-reflection, very much as a co-planner with you, not as a get you gotcha or anything like that. So we look forward to helping you folks out with that in the future. Some upcoming events. Here we have that, the dates are in November, February, and April. We're going to very much continue to do online so that virtually folks can jump in and out as you need to. We know that everyone is very busy and we appreciate people's time. But also trying to keep it so that those of you who had colleagues that weren't able to attend, and you say, I really want them to see the great work that, the ABLE program is working on, that you can go back and look at the Padlet. And I hope some of my colleagues can help me out by putting that Padlet in the chat so everyone can do that. So yeah, Aaron, we'll definitely get that submitted for you. But if there's that QR, I also put in the chat a little bit earlier that there was the feedback, but please do that. I don't know, folks like me, I have to bookmark things. So, I bookmark the Padlet so that, I already have access to those resources. So we appreciate your time. And I have on one clock, 10:58, the 11:02 on the other. So I think we can split that in the middle and we have you out right on time. We appreciate and look forward to meeting all of you face to face. Thank you very much. Just as an aside, those of you who fill out the certificate, the feedback will get your certificate automatically emailed to you. So please, take the time. It'll go right to your email. It'll come from a do not reply from a Google. Aaron, the attendance sheet, yeah, I can put that back in that chat for everyone.
Chelsea, are you still on here?
I am.
It's Carolyn Frazier. I just have a question in regards to basically allowing, I guess they were saying something about allowing a student to come to a career tech by having doubts that they would, be successful. So I struggle with that because I have kids that have beaten, have done great being here. So I kind of question how people are determining the success in CT for these kids. They're coming here.
Yeah. And I agree with you completely, Carolyn. I mean, I know that it's because of CTE that so many students who maybe wouldn't have been successful get across that finish line and are employable and do amazing things. I think it just depends on, attitudes potentially at a particular career center. And they're like, oh, well, this kid would never pass a credentialing exam. And that's what we do here. Or we can't ever send this kid out to a work-based learning site because of XY behavior issues. So they sort of predetermine whether a student can be successful, and then make that determination on whether they will be either admitted to the program or just placed in a JTC or not admitted to the school at all. Definitely not a best practice, but it's something that we have seen.
I feel like they've I guess some of them went to a conference and said, if you do this, that you can be sued for, and I'm like, giving them these chances, I don't know. There's a lot that have been here that have done extraordinary things. And I'm just so happy that they're here and that they're proving themselves.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Career Tech is for all students, regardless of what you're coming from or what your history's been or how credit deficient you are or any of those things. We can make workarounds for the best betterment of every kid.
All right. Well, thank you. I just needed your input.
Yeah, no, you are absolutely right. Take them all, bring them all.
Thank you.
Carolyn, you and I should probably have some conversation about that. So this is Nancy from Southwestern as well.
Oh, perfect. I would love that.
Yeah, because I understand exactly what you're saying. So
okay.
That's conversation I think we need to continue having. So that would be great.
Perfect. Thank you so much.
Okay, everyone, if you don't have any other questions, feel free to finish up your survey, and then we'll start putting people in the waiting room so we can debrief as a team.